In today's episode, I'm breaking down my process to shift you from chasing success to actually aligning your reality with your authentic self. I do have to give a disclaimer, a little trigger warning, because I'm going to be sharing a little bit about my story that involves SA. So if that bothers you, this will be one of those times that you will want to leave. I really started to come across this process, this entire revelation started around the age at 13. Before that, multiple times through my childhood, actually, I experienced SA at the hands of multiple people. Everything really shifted around the age of 13. One of the people who was a perpetrator of this abuse actually called and apologized to me. And at 13, being so young, I really didn't know what to do with that at first. I know that this is not the most common experience, but it really did serve as a catalyst for consciousness at a really young age for me. I, of course, went through a period of time of really being angry, and not only that the abuse had happened, but also angry at the apology for it. And then I experienced grief and sadness and so many emotions within myself. But after processing all of those emotions, I then became very curious about how and why people do what they do. Here I am, a teenager, really diving deep into the exploration of human behavior. I explored my own behavior around experiencing this abuse and the decisions that I was making as a result of that abuse. But also, I was examining the other people in my life and also people that I didn't even know. So I really became aware of my own patterns that were stemming from my experiences. And then I started to explore how those differed from other people with similar experiences and how they were the same. In the case of one of my abusers, it caused me to dive deep into how certain types of programming around being male, around religion, around the expectations of community, so on and so forth, how those programs and patterns were manifesting through behavior that caused me harm. Eventually, I started to explore how that ultimately manifested in our reality. I have a propensity to study psychological things like thrillers, crime TV, etc., all because I really have this desire to understand why people are doing the things they're doing. Fast forward to today, and now we are in a massive global identity shift, a global identity crisis, if you will. And a lot of people are having this collective awakening to the fact that their own lives don't make sense or don't feel aligned or purposeful or meaningful, and they feel disconnected. But also, we are starting to see old paradigms crumble, old systems, old ways of thinking. At the core of my experience, as well as happening collectively, what we are seeing is all of this unconscious behavior, all of this unconscious paradigm making itself manifest, bringing itself into reality. And so, what the present opportunity has presented for every single one of us is an opportunity to step into our role as a sovereign being. I've seen that this shift is all about going from being a truth seeker, an awakened individual, and moving into your role in this life as a sovereign evolutionary. Now, I have to dive deep into what that actually means for you as someone who wants to create transformation in your life. And hopefully, if you're watching this, you want to make change in the world as well. It's important that we really understand what that looks like because it is a more rare state of being in this world because we are programmed in a specific way, conditioned in a way that keeps us disconnected from our power, from our ability to create the reality that we want. So, what we've got to understand at the core is that it isn't possible for you to outcreate your identity. That means that who you see yourself as, how you see the world, creates the limitation of what's possible for you. So if you are here to create something that is beyond what you think is now possible for you, then we have to look at the identity level. Because we're moving into a new paradigm, what we're also experiencing is that so many of our old ways of doing things simply don't work anymore. If you're like me, you were probably taught that if you just get good grades in school, go to college, get a degree, get a good job, you'll make enough money to have a white picket fence and a partner and 2.5 kids and a little dog named Spot. And the fact of the matter is that isn't necessarily true for most people. That is not the case. Even if you do create that reality of the white picket fence with the 2.5 kids and the little dog Spot, even then, what I find is people realize that it is empty, that it is hollow, that it is unfulfilling. The reason for that is because it isn't aligned with your highest frequency. It isn't aligned with the truth of your authentic self. In order to be what I call a sovereign evolutionary, we need to talk about what do those two words mean? Sovereign is a word that's thrown around in spiritual spaces a lot, but very few people talk about what it actually means in grounded terms. I love the word sovereign because my brand is the Royal Shaman, and I work with what I call the new royals, the new leaders of a new paradigm. But sovereign also has multiple meanings. And sovereign means that you are self-led. It means that you are acting independently from outside interference or forces. It means that you are not just reacting to what's happening, but you're able to consciously choose your behaviors, not just acting from programming. Now, this is a process that takes a lifetime. I am not a 1000% master at this, but this is essentially my life's work, that I'm always aiming to be in my sovereign energy. The word sovereign has to do with being connected to and possessing ultimate power. This ultimate power comes from our connection with the divine, being empowered by our connection to spirit, to the spiritual realm in a very real way, not seeking it externally, but being connected within. The word evolutionary is crucial at this time because many of us find ourselves railing against the systems that exist. Many of us are activists and revolutionaries, and that work is absolutely incredible and also needed. However, what I think a lot of people don't realize is that when we are solely in revolutionary energy, fighting against the system, against oppression, against a lack of justice, we don't always realize that we are feeding into that same system. We want to be in our evolutionary energy as well. So being an evolutionary energy is all about gradual change and development that is not in attachment to or in rebellion from something else, but entirely on its own accord. If you think about how animals have evolved, they aren't evolving just opposing who they were or the animal that they were, but evolving in a new direction, right? And so becoming a sovereign evolutionary is really at its core all about you operating in your highest frequency that is truth. A lot of people say that love is the highest frequency, and that's not felt quite right to me. And I think the reason for that is because truth is actually the highest frequency. Your authentic self, who you are at the core, that is not dependent on pleasing someone else or repeating patterns that come from your family or from your community, your culture, etc. That is how we operate in our sovereignty as a sovereign evolutionary. Let's dive into this process for how you actually create permanent change. And I bring up this collective awakening because I want you to understand this is about both the micro level, meaning you as an individual, but also the macro level, how we can do this in our businesses, families, communities, organizations, and ultimately culture, the world. The first step is that we need to understand that identity creates reality, that identity is the root cause of our behaviors, of our systems, of our thought, of our feelings. And that it's from this energy that we then create reality. It's from the way that we hold our self-concept, how we see ourselves, how we value ourselves, what we value. It's from that paradigm that we create reality. So at the root, the reality that we are experiencing as an individual is about your identity. But then the reality that we are experiencing as a collective is a co-creation. It's a collective identity, essentially. And of course, there are layers to that because different groups have different identities, different genders have different identities and sexualities, but you just need to really understand that point. So if we want to move into sovereignty, we need to be able to become aware of and dissolve the old paradigms, the paradigms that are no longer serving us or no longer working. One way that I'm seeing this manifest is a lot of people are talking about the male loneliness epidemic. And what's actually happening at the core of this is that many men are becoming aware, maybe not fully aware yet, but the ways of being a man that worked 50 years ago no longer serve today. So in order for men to resolve this loneliness epidemic, it involves dissolving those old ways of being and old ways of seeing the world that cannot really go with us where we're going. We want to become aware of what is the societal conditioning, what are the experiences that we've had, and what are these outdated versions of self that are ready to be let go of, that are ready to be dissolved. I do have a free quiz called Uncover Your Essence. This quiz is all about being able to start to get in touch with the core frequencies you are designed to be. It's an incredibly healing experience. I have a deeper version of this inside of my programs, and everyone cries when they go through that process because it's such a feeling of being seen. If you've ever had a really good astrology reading or divination, it's a whole new level of being seen and understanding yourself. You can find that in the notes below. For the second step in this process, this is all about energetic mastery. This is about becoming a master at the hidden, unseen, intangible, unknown aspects of this reality. In science, it's known that dark matter makes up the majority of reality. In psychology, it's known that the subconscious mind makes up the majority of your behavior, right? So it's important that we understand that it is the unseen aspect of our being that is the most important frontier for us to explore. When we get solely focused on the strategy, the planning, analyzing the data, everything that's connected to this reality, and we ignore this other aspect that is actually the primary thing creating our reality, we end up staying a victim to reality instead of being in our power, because this energy is our power. That is the bulk of how we create reality. So really starting to understand that this reality is much more than what can be seen by our naked eye and understood by the mind. The third step of this process is all about conscious embodiment. Conscious embodiment is all about bridging the practical with spiritual and vice versa. Okay. It's all about taking what is non-physical, the energy, the identity, etc., and then turning that into conscious and aligned action. This is where we create aligned systems, aligned structures, aligned businesses, aligned environments, homes, structures, brand. I could go on and on. This is my zone of genius. Being able to take these esoteric, metaphysical, intangible concepts and turn them into reality, to make them real. And this is how we create true purpose, power, and prosperity that is based in our sovereignty. We started our conversation today about this collective awakening and identity crisis that is happening, and how, if we want to create permanent, real transformation that lasts forever and creates a ripple effect of impact, we start by digging deep on an identity level and aligning that identity with our essence. We then want to master our energy, master the hidden, unseen, intangible patterns that are making up this reality. And then we want to play in the realm of conscious embodiment, becoming a master at taking the spiritual and making it physical, making it practical, making it real, and allowing our manifestations to be a reflection of our authentic selves. So if this resonated with you, I'm going to invite you again to take the essence quiz that I mentioned early. That's complimentary. But also you can apply to learn more about how we could work together and also be guided to exploring some of my other more self-led options. See you next time.